Okay, so here we go. So just a brief introduction, most of you know. So my name's Tom. I'm here on Fridays. A couple weeks it'll be 30 years that I've been here at MPI. All right, I teach college outside of here, and I'm a therapist. I just started my 36th year of teaching college, and that's a long time. And I teach Intro to Psych and Abnormal Psychology this semester. That's at Chabot College in Hayward. I'm not at College Marin this semester, but I've been there for the last 15, 16 years. And there I teach Intro to Psych, Abnormal Psych, and Child and Adolescent Psych. And my background, as some of you guys know, is sports. I was a swim coach at Cal for a while. I coached one of the greatest Olympic athletes ever lived. His name's Matt Biondi. He won 11 Olympic medals, which was awesome. I got to go to the Olympics with him in 1992 in Barcelona, which was very cool. I taught sports psychology in graduate school for about 15 years, and I wrote a book on sports psychology that came out 19 years ago. All right? So I do this more like a class, and what we're going to do today, we're going to talk about recovery, and we're going to talk about the relapse process. All right? So what we're going to start with, recovery. All right? And a lot of this comes from Gorski's book, Staying Sober, which all of you have. I believe it's chapter 7 in Gorski's books where he talks about the relapse process. But the key topic we're going to talk about today, these are called stuck points, all right? And a stuck point is some issue in your life that's absolutely overwhelming and you don't know how to deal with it, all right? It's just this huge thing, and oh my gosh. Now, first, what we want to do, what recovery is about. The key thing here is to identify your stuck points. And your stuck points are probably different than the person next to you. And I'm going to give you some examples of these. All right, stuck points. Some people who come through the doors here, any treatment program, maybe they have this one, maybe many people don't. All right, here's one stuck point. You're in a relationship with somebody who's in active addiction. Now, some people who come through the doors here have this, some people don't. You know, their husband, their wife, their boyfriend or girlfriend, their parents who they live with, whatever, somebody in their household is actively in addiction. And that's a whole, how do I stay clean and sober when this person is using? All right, so identifying what are my stuck points. Okay, what's another one that's common? All right, everybody at my job uses. Everybody. And we've had people in here before, sommeliers, professional wine tasters, all right? People who work in bars, you know, whatever. But it's like, or not only, offices, and we have wine tasting in the office. We all go out for happy hour on Fridays, anything like that. So we're identifying, wait, this is a stuck point. Maybe all my friends use. All of my friends use. Everybody I work with uses, all right? And so like the hard questions, are, can I stay clean and sober in this job? Can I stay clean and sober with this group of friends? Probably not. All right. Can I stay clean and sober in this relationship? All right. So we want to identify stuck points. Let me give you some more here. Another stuck point that's very common. Plenty of people who come through treatment. I'm here for this, alcohol, let's say. I think I can still do this. Smoke weed, take pills, do whatever. I'm here for weed. I think I can still drink. That's a stuck point. All right, and what I've always said for years and years and years here, if that's you, I encourage you to talk about it with your peers, talk about it with your counselor, talk about it in your small group, instead of just keeping these things in. But these stuck points as I think I can safely use. All right, a stuck point that we get occasionally, not all the time. We'll get people who are in here, they had 15, 20, 30 years clean and sober. You know what their stuck point was? I think I'm cured. I think I'm cured. I think I can use safely now. All right? That's a stuck point. Another stuck point for a lot of people. All right? So now you can participate. Who can tell me what's the first word of the 12 steps? We. There we go. We. And the first 3 words, we admitted we. That's a stuck point for a lot of people. Because you know what their first 3 words are? I thought I. I thought I had a problem. I decided I'm going to stop. You don't know me. I know what I need to do. I can do this. I. And so we, as I always say, I'm not a we. I need somebody else to be a we. And if I'm admitting, I'm speaking. I'm not thinking, I'm speaking. And I'm admitting I'm speaking, they're listening. And then when they speak, I listen. And so when we admitted we, that's such a huge, those 3 words, you know, and okay, a lot of people don't like the 12 steps because of God or whatever. Deal with that when you get to step 3. Deal with that when you get to step 4. Everybody needs to get we admitted we. Okay, not step 4, step 5. All right, but so we all need to get we admitted we. All right, that's a stuck point. Another stuck point, and again, so like I said, teaching all these years in Hayward, which some of you know is one of the is like, if not the most ethnically diverse city in the United States, it's one of the top 2. All right. And I get papers every semester from my students for all these years. And what those papers say is, well, in my culture and in my family, we don't talk about our problems. You know, we were told, if you have a problem, you don't put our business on the street, you don't air our dirty laundry, you got a problem, you just deal with it yourself, you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you know, these kinds of things. And so their stuck point is, I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk. I'm not going to do this. That's a stuck point for a lot of people. I don't want to talk. Okay? And then the next one is, there are plenty of people who come in here and it's like, I've got this huge closet full of secrets that I don't want to talk about. All right? That's a stuck point. I don't want to talk about my gambling addiction, my sex addiction, my porn addiction, my internet gaming addiction, my World of Warcraft and my Fortnite addiction, with plenty of my students have. Okay? My shopping addiction, my food addiction, my fill in the blank. Those kinds of things. That's a stuck point for a lot of people. Another one for a lot of people could be past trauma. I've got tons of trauma and I don't even want to go near there. Now that's a whole complex issue how to deal with. I'm not saying you need to like vomit your trauma on the table or anything like that, but we need to look at, and this is what we do with stuck points. We identify them and then we look at what are possible options in dealing with these. What are my possible options in dealing with my stuck points? Everybody where I work uses, what are my possible options? Can I work a different shift? Can I try to get transferred somewhere else? Hey, this is a great time to go back to school because you could take a couple classes at a time and get a different degree, you know, because you could do some online and some in person and all that kind of stuff. All right, but what are my possible options? I'm in a relationship with somebody who's in active addiction. Possible option. Can I go to recovery home for a little while? I'm not saying you move into recovery home for the rest of your life, but maybe 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, and then reevaluate as you go on. That's a possible option. Okay? So we want to look at and identify what these possible options are to deal with them. Because again, many people who first come into treatment, I'm just going to quit. I'm just going to stop using. That's a stuck point. Okay? I think I can just stop. And we kind of talked about that last week in here. And so what we now do is we work the program around the stuck points. And what does that mean? Well, first of all, we talk about it. And I'm sure this person wouldn't mind me telling this story. This is 20 years ago, and if they're watching, that's wonderful. Okay? But this is back when we used to do assessments upstairs. So what I've always done here, assessments in this group, other stuff, but primarily that. All right? And he was an alcoholic. He came in here, and he said, look, I own a restaurant on the other side of the hill, and it's a really nice restaurant. And it's all about wine and wine pairing, and we want to taste my wine, and people bring in their own wine this, wine that. He said, there's no way I can stay clean and sober and own that restaurant. I can't do it. And this is before cell phones. That's how long ago this was, all right? And he sold his restaurant from that phone in the hallway out there, literally. Because he knows there's no way, that's a stuck point. I can't keep doing this. I can't stay there in that environment. All right? And here's what's hard, okay? This is what's hard. Now, okay, you guys are a little older, but for my 20-something people that I deal with, all my friends drink like I drink, and I'm in here. And they've been my friends for my life, and that's all they do. That's what they do all the time. How do I deal with that? And this another stuck point here. And again, you think about this, this is a life stuck point that I just see so much, as I talk about all the time with my students. But I see it in my students, I see it in here, and I see it in my office as a therapist as well. But the one, and this is my social anxiety. And that's a stuck point, is that I'm scared to talk to people. I don't want to talk to people, and I just want to just quit using. And I think I'll just try to do that. But so we want to talk about, hey, if you have social anxiety, you can say, I have social anxiety. Whatever. I don't like that term. I'm working, because I'm always on working on. That's what I always talk about here. And we look at, so working on, I talk about this all the time. Working on, because that's what we're going to do, is try to develop new coping skills. All right, and so we're identifying areas in our life that I need new coping skills. And so let me give you an example. Anger. Think of anger on a scale of 1 to 10. There are plenty of people. I've got a 0, I'm not mad, and a 20, somebody's going out the window. And there's no in between. All right, new coping skills, I'm working on trying to become more mindful and aware of my anger. Notice when it's building up. Noticing my possible options. Could I leave the situation? Could I say something to kind of calm it down? Could I do something? How can I deal with this? All right, but that's what we're trying to do in developing new coping skills. So we're going to talk about these areas that we need that we're working on, and then here's a tough one. We're going to listen. And it's interesting, so kind of things that we talked about in here last week, which we did not film, which is okay. All right, but when somebody brought up open-mindedness, and I did say, well, people don't talk about open-mindedness because everybody thinks they're open-minded. All right, and I always say, ask yourself, do you feel like you're a good listener? And do other people think you're a good listener? You see? And how can you work on your listening skills? All right, so what recovery is I'm identifying my stuck points. I'm looking at how to deal with them. I'm developing new coping skills on how to deal with them. I'm working on healthy emotional boundaries, all right, with people, and that is often simply just saying no, all right? Just saying no. Hey, can you do this for me? No, I don't have time. I can't get to that till Tuesday. All right? Because you say, yes, I'll do this, somebody at work, and then you get mad. Why did I say yes? And now they're just playing on their phone, and I'm doing my work and their work. And now you're mad at them, and now you're mad at yourself. Healthy emotional boundaries, no, I can't do that. But a lot of people, healthy emotional boundaries, they feel reluctant to try to set these because, oh, well, look at how much I did in the past, and look at all my wreckage, and look at all this kind of stuff. And so this is what we're trying to do in recovery. So what recovery can look like is we go forward, we hit a stuck point, we back off from the stuck point, we go forward. Now here's another one, we go forward. Let me give you an example. All right, here's kind of a good stuck point. Somebody leaves treatment and they're like, this happens often. Hey, I don't know how this happened. I went back to work. 3 weeks later, I got promoted. I got a new title, higher salary. I got promoted at work. You know what? I don't have time for meetings. I don't have time for recovery. I got to make all this money. I got to do this. That's a stuck point. I don't have time. My sponsor moved, my sponsor relapsed, whatever. Another stuck point, hey, could be somebody in the family died, something terrible happened, these kinds of things. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to touch base on how you said on the working. That would happen a lot when I was at work. When they would ask me, someone would have a certain assignment, and they'd ask me, can I help them? And then I'd be the one doing the whole thing, and they would not be participating at all.
Right.
So that's very much what you're saying.
And you get upset about that.
I think about the whole day, and sometimes in the next day, yes.
Right. Like, dude, I just did your job while you sat here and did nothing.
100%.
Right. And so these healthy emotional boundaries, and again, it's not like that's going to make you go out and drink right then, but you keep doing that, and that resentment starts building up, and that anger starts building up, both at yourself and at them. Yeah. It's terrible. Yeah. And again, that's how we need to identify, oh, this is something I need to work on. This is something, and again, it's like literally like speaking a new language. I'm gonna, no, I can't do that. You may stutter a few bit the first time you say it, and you may struggle with it, but eventually it's like, no, I can't.
Yeah, I've had a hard time with setting boundaries in the past, and that's something I definitely am trying to work on now.
Exactly, and that's a stuck point for a lot of people. And the guilt that comes with this is like, well, in my addiction, I wasn't there, so I need to do all this extra stuff to kind of make up for it. And then, how do I deal with that?
I find that sometimes at home too, as I left the residential, coming home to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of all the wreckage I left in the past, the guilt, and then all of a sudden, I'm kind of letting my kids walk all over me.
Right. Exactly. Good point. A very good point. Good. Thank you. Anyone else so far with this? Go ahead.
Yeah, with guilt too, I noticed that I feel guilty for, what you were saying about your kids, like having a 16-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
You realize that since they were 10, you did a lot of things for them out of the guilt that you have for being intoxicated or
right.
something. You guilt parent almost.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's not a good thing.
No, and again, it's like, how do I now set healthy emotional boundaries? How do I develop new coping skills, like talking to the kid, hey, you know what? I'm going to start trying to do things differently. I'm going to start trying to communicate differently. I'm going to set some rules here. I'm going to set some boundaries here. This is what I'm going to do. These kinds of things. Because what so many people do, and I kind of go back to the friend thing, is, well, it's up to them. It's up to them. And what I always say is, here's a stuck point. I think everybody in the world who goes through treatment has this one. All right? They are reluctant to say these words. I'd rather you not drink in front of me. Right? I'm not saying you're telling somebody that for the rest of their life. But right now, in early recovery, for 3 months, for 6 months, yes. All right? And no, I'm sorry, I can't go to that party because, or it's a family thing, it's a wedding, I need to go. You know what? I'm going to go. I'm going to bring a sober friend. I'm going to stay for the reception for pictures, and then I'm going to leave. They're not going to stop the wedding without you. You left, so everybody go home. No. But again, that's a stuck point, is asserting myself, setting these boundaries, speaking up for these kinds of things. And so that's what we're trying to do here, and that's what recovery looks like, is just how do I manage, and it's the same thing we talk about in sports, is that how do you deal with setbacks? How do you deal with, I don't like the word failure, but just setbacks. And every athlete has setbacks. All right, and how do they deal with them, and then what happens? That's a real challenge, because some of these setbacks can be massively huge, and just, oh my gosh, I regret. And you'll hear athletes talk about this all the time. I still regret what didn't happen 20 years ago, or what I should have done 20 years ago. All right, these kinds of things. Unfortunately. All right, so this is what we're trying to do in recovery. This is what recovery looks like, instead of just not using. All right, that's what we're trying to do here, okay? All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to move forward now. All right, let me get at this. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to get into the whole process of a relapse. All right, and again, the key term there is process, because it's not the relapse event, all right? So here we go. So this is... the relapse process, okay? The relapse process. And what happens is the person has these stuck points, but what they do is they use denial. I'll be okay. I can handle it. I'll be able to manage it. It's up to me. I just got to be strong, okay? They use denial, all right? And as you know, denial works for a while. You can deny a relationship's bad, you can deny a job's bad, your health is bad, your finances bad, whatever. You can deny all this stuff. It works for a while. But now what happens is their stress level goes up. Well, I find I'm getting more stressed at this job. I find I'm getting more stressed in this relationship. I'm finding I'm getting more stressed about my health issues. I'm finding getting more stressed over whatever it is that I've tried denying it, and now my stress level's going up, and as we talked about in here last week, now my post-acute withdrawal symptoms start coming back. All right, so we talked about those all in here last week, but now I'm starting to have trouble thinking and focusing. I'm having trouble with my memory. I'm having sleep problems. I'm accident prone. I'm sensitive to stress. I'm overreacting to things. My emotions are all over the place. And so now here, because this person has not dealt with the stuck point, denial, stress, post-acute withdrawal, now this puts them on this slide, and that's the process. Again, it's not the relapse event, it's the relapse process. The first part of this, as Gorski talks about also, this is called internal dysfunction. And in internal dysfunction, the person's like, I don't feel comfortable in my own skin. I don't feel comfortable in my own skin. I don't want to talk. I don't want to participate. I'll just kind of go through the motions. I'll learn a couple little sayings like, oh, I'm just going to turn it over. I'm just going to work it one day at a time. I'm going to work a program. Whatever, internal dysfunction. And I talked about it. I had a guy sitting right here once, and he raised his hand. He said, you know what? It was his second time here at MPI. He said, my first time at MPI, I was in internal dysfunction the whole time, 28 days. He said, you know what my stuck point was? I've got one rule. No matter what, don't pick up. And if I stick with my one rule, I don't need to go to meetings. I don't need a sponsor. I don't need therapy. I don't need anybody. I can just stick with my one rule. He goes, that was my stuck point. I didn't realize it at the time, but that was my stuck point. And that's a stuck point that a lot of people have. It's up to me, and I think I can do it myself. All right? And so this internal dysfunction kind of, if I do go to or participate in anything, I kind of show up late, I leave early, I'm a semi-warm body in a chair, and that's kind of it. That's this internal dysfunction. And what this now leads to this external dysfunction. And in external dysfunction now, other people start to notice. Other people start to notice. I'm not managing anything. And what happens all along this is isolation. Isolation. You see, so other people start to notice here, and I'm isolating more and more. And when I say isolation, this can look in a lot of different ways. All right, this could be isolation that I kind of don't go to meetings, I don't talk to people. But this could be I'm around others, but I still isolate. I isolate within a group. I isolate, I just sit here and I just keep to myself. And I don't participate. So they isolate more and more. And so this external dysfunction, when I say other people notice, think about this. Anybody who comes in here because they relapsed, chances are, before you picked up and used, somebody close to you said, are you okay? Are you all right? What's going on? Changed a little bit. Maybe even asked, are you using? But other people start to notice. All right? And what do people usually say when somebody says, hey, are you okay? What's the response they give?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine. Thanks for asking. How are you? All right? But the reality is they're seeing something that this person is not able to see, and that happens all the time. All right? They're not able to see. And again, I always talk about this. You've all met people who are really angry and don't think they're angry. All right? You've met people who are really negative and don't think they're negative. People who are verbally mean and they don't think they are. All right? So other people notice oh my gosh, there's something changing here. All right? And they can see that change in you. All right? And so now what happens next is, again, more and more isolation, and now is this loss of control. This loss of control. In this loss of control, because now the emotional energy from the stuck point, denying it, and the stress and the post-acute withdrawal coming back, now this is building up within this person. All right? And now what they feel like is, you know what? I need to do something. I gotta do something, and you guys all know the next thing, to take the edge off. I gotta do something to take the edge off. And the question is, for everybody, what's that edge for you? What's that edge? You see, and again, when I would do assessments on people, one of the questions I would ask, and some of you heard me say this 5 weeks ago in here, what does alcohol do for you? What does smoking weed do for you? What do pills do for you? What does kratom do for you? What does Xanax do for you?
It's an escape for a short period.
It's an escape for a short period of time.
It numbs my emotions.
Numbs my emotions.
Yeah, it immediately is relieving the discomfort.
It immediately relieves the discomfort. Good. Anyone else? What is
Avoidance?
avoidance? Yeah.
It relieves traumatic memories.
Relieves traumatic memories.
Takes away anxiety. Too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And see, here's the thing. Whatever it did for you, those are your stuck points. That's the way you can identify your stuck points. What it did for me, because how are you now going to deal with those same issues, clean and sober? Because they're coming back up. They're there. All right? And so how are you going to deal with those are the stuck points. And see, and like I said, it'd be wonderful if you just, people say, oh, I just want to throw my problems out the window and move forward. Well, if that worked, we'd tell you to do that. Okay? All right? But this is what we need to look at is what was that stress that built up that I needed to take the edge off for? What was going on with that? Okay? And so that was what was doing for me to help me with that, and how am I going to deal with those same issues now clean and sober? That's not an easy task. And that's why recovery is such a challenge. All right? These kinds of things. All right? And then now what happens next here, this is what's called option reduction. Now, Gorski in that book, Staying Sober, how he defines a relapse. He defines a relapse, I'll put it up here, is being dysfunctional in sobriety. All right? He does not define a relapse as picking up and using. All right? He talks about high quality sobriety versus low quality sobriety. High quality sobriety. Let's say we have two people who have 6 months clean and sober. All right? And this person goes to a meeting every day. They have a sponsor. They're working the steps. Maybe they're in therapy. Maybe they're doing service. They're calling other people. They're connecting with others. That's their program. This person over here hasn't been to a meeting in 4 months, and I'm taking it one day at a time, doing it my way. High quality sobriety versus low quality sobriety. The chance of this person getting to a year, and then we always talk about, Daryl Lanava says 80% of the people get to 1 year clean, get to 5 years clean, which is fantastic. This person getting to a year and 5 years is wonderful. This person over here, not good at all. And again, back when people used to call here all the time and say, they always ask, what's your success rate? We get that one all the time. I said, it depends what people do when they leave here. I mean, yeah, what they do in here is one thing, and that's good, but what happens when they leave? And if they do what we suggest, they're going to do fine. If they don't, it's not going to go very well. All right? But so their sobriety is dysfunctional. So now this option reduction, it's now, I feel like I've got 3 choices. Number 1, I could use. Number 2, I could kill myself. Number 3, I think I'm just going to go crazy. All right? And obviously, the most reasonable thing here is using. But as I say, if you've been around recovery for long periods of time, which some of you probably have, all right, you've seen people 10, 15, 20 plus years clean and sober. And you know what happened here? They chose option 2. They killed themselves. They said, I'd rather be dead than loaded. Other people say, I'd rather be loaded than dead. All right, and what Gorski would say, their sobriety was dysfunctional. That's what led them here, all right? Now, if you like to read, and even if you don't like to read, there's a book, and it's called Waking Up Alive. It's by a guy, Richard Heckler. All right. Now, when I taught graduate school out of John F. Kennedy, which is closed now, all right, Heckler taught out there. I didn't know him, but there was a little flyer in the hallway. He's going to do a book, talk about his book and all this stuff. So I went to it. He interviewed people who attempted suicide and lived. All right, and there's many people who come through the doors here, and they woke up and they were alive. And he talks about what led to the suicide attempt and their recovery. And if you look at what led to their suicide attempt, that what happened is they saw suicide as a reasonable way out of their problems, a reasonable choice, a reasonable escape. It seemed like a reasonable thing to do. And there are plenty of people that what happens is, from the stuck points, from internal dysfunction, external dysfunction, loss of control, here, using seems like a reasonable choice. And this is where the acronym I use right here, this is called CDTU. All right, that's what I put up here. And what you'll hear people say, oh, you know what? Yeah, I relapsed. I just made a conscious decision to use. That's what happened. It was a Tuesday. I walked in a liquor store, I bought a bottle, and I drank it. That was my relapse. No. The relapse started way back here with the stuck point. All right? They denied it. Stress went up. Post-acute withdrawal went up. They went through internal dysfunction, external dysfunction, and they tried to do some things to kind of take the edge off. It didn't work, or it worked for a little while and not more. And then here, what they're actually saying, I made a conscious decision to choose option one. Here, all right? And some of the stuff Heckler talks about in his book, and it's interesting because he doesn't mention the 12 steps at all in his book, all right? But if you know the 12 steps, they just leap off the pages, of what these people did in their recovery, of how they turned their lives around, and the steps they took here with this, okay? Now, let me pause. Any of you who have had clean time in the past, can you talk about how this was for you?
Yeah. When I went through a Kaiser program in 2016, and I was doing programs, I was doing meetings, and I started falling off and not going to the meetings, started to isolate, and actually it all makes sense too, because people were asking me, how are you doing? And I said, I'm doing fine. And I thought I could not go to meetings. I thought I could exercise my way through it. And then I started to use the kratom. That's when I started to just think in my mind that I was like, okay, I got this under control. And yeah. So that's.
Thank you. Can you now? You don't have to talk about it, but can you now identify stuck points?
Yeah, like I definitely wanted something to take the edge off. Like I needed to take the edge off. That was one of them, because I was working a lot, doing a lot of overtime, and then that's also the lot. So funny, everything you read on it too. The loss of control. There's things that like going on in personal life, everything, and I felt like it was out of control, and that was another one I started to use because of that. So.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think my stuck point was definitely my last relapse with my relationship, and that was creating the internal dysfunction. With me was just a lot of stress, worrying, kind of manageable emotions that at the time I didn't really have the coping skills to deal with. And kind of along the slope of isolation, I externally I removed myself from the SLE I was staying at, stopped talking to my sponsor, and then that natural kind of option reduction to using, killing yourself, going crazy, it's almost seemed like my three options at the time, and then my most reasonable thinking was picking up.
Right. Before you picked up, were people asking you if everything was okay?
Yeah, there was even people suspicious that I was using before I picked up.
Right.
The behavior was
Right.
definitely.
And did old behaviors start, you don't have to talk about it specifically, but were old behaviors coming back here when you felt out of control, doing something, trying to take the edge off? Right.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
I think like isolation, maybe a little anger.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Here first.
I had about 5, just the ones we talked about, and one I could think about that I thought about. 5 step points.
Uh-huh.
And that sounds like exactly when I relapsed, after like 5-6 months in a 30-day program, it sounds exactly like what happened to me.
What happened, right? And the same thing before you picked up, were people asking?
Yeah,
And did old behaviors come back before you picked up as well?
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
I thought it was, I never really realized this aspect of prelapse to relapse because I always thought it was just a switch that went off automatically in my head, because that's what it feels like.
That's what, right.
I can't.
That's what it feels like on that Tuesday when they walk in the liquor store. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't find a specific trigger, but it's just like I'm on autopilot. I go
Right.
to the store.
By that time,
But
yes.
I realized I was isolated, and when you're bringing up all these points, I'm like, yeah, my husband was saying, you're not really going to meetings anymore, what's going on? And I mean, I just assumed that, well, I was gonna be late or whatever excuse. So I just, I now see that it's very clear when those things come
Right.
into play.
Right, good. Thank you. Whoops. Anyone else with this? Okay. All right, so I'm gonna erase this. I want you to keep this all in your mind. And now, I'm gonna erase this and move to some different stuff. Okay, so just remember that, okay? All right, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna talk about some basic intro to psychology stuff that I've been doing forever. And since we just had the second week of the semester, I already did this once this week, all right? And so what we're gonna talk about here, we're gonna talk about, okay, we all have our conscious, all right? And our conscious this is here and now, okay? This is what's on our mind now. Come here, we're gonna get this, okay? So what is on our mind right now? All right, this is what we're thinking, all right? What we're thinking, and this is kind of knowing things, all right? Knowing what I should do, knowing what I shouldn't do, that's our conscious here. Okay, so I know I shouldn't do this, I know I should do that, okay, that kind of stuff, what I'm thinking about. And what I tell my students is, if something happened this morning, like you got a ticket or you got a horrible message on social media, that's what you're thinking about. You're not focusing on what's going on in class. And people here, you got a phone call or you got a text from somebody, the same thing. It's like, oh my gosh, what's happening? All right, so that's our conscious. Now, our pre-conscious here, okay, our pre-conscious, this is just out of our awareness, but we can get to it if we focus on it. All right, just out of our awareness, but we can get to it in our focus. So this could be thoughts, this could be memories, this could be our feelings, these kinds of things. Pre-conscious, all right? So the example I use, let's say you're angry and you know you're angry because of something that just happened, okay? You're conscious about your anger. But let's say there's nothing really that's bothering you right now, but you stop and think, and maybe there's some longer term issues that you're angry about. That's kind of pre-conscious, all right? Conscious. There are plenty of people, they're not in a relationship and they're lonely, and they're aware that they're lonely. All right, we've had plenty of people over the years come through here and they'll say, this doesn't make sense to me, but I'll tell you how I feel. I'm married and I'm lonely. I'm married and I'm lonely. I'm in a committed relationship and I'm lonely. I feel lonely, but there's somebody right there. That's pre-conscious. As I say with my students, like one of my students, whatever, just asking the other day. So conscious would be like, oh, I like this person. And then pre-conscious, oh, here's why I like them. Because they're loyal, they're honest, they're nice, they're this, they're that. I can stop and think about that. But I know I like them, but now I'm breaking down why I like them. That's pre-conscious, all right? And then we have here our unconscious, which means, subconscious. Those words are used interchangeably, unconscious, subconscious. And this is all of our past experiences. All of our past experiences, even things that happened before we have memories. age 1, 2, 3, 4, these kinds of things. All of our past experience. These are things we like in here, things we dislike in here. These are our attractions. This is it. So when events happen to us in our life, they go into our unconscious here, and they're stored in here the way they went in. All right? And they stay that way. They stay that way. Okay? Now, some of you have heard me tell this story before. I've been telling it for years. All right? So if you know the answer, let somebody else answer, please. Okay? So this is called a genogram. A square is a male, a circle is a female. So here we have dad, we have mom. All right? Okay. We have we have a son here. We have a daughter here who's 16 and a little sister here who's like 12. Okay? All right. So what's going on? This is, 30 plus years ago when I'm doing my internship in some of the local high schools. All right? Her father was physically abusive to mom, physically abusive to her older brother, physically abusive to her, and physically abusive to her little sister. All right? And that's what happened. It wasn't uncommon for her to be in a room crying because dad had hit her. Wasn't uncommon for her to be in a room crying because dad was hitting mom, and she and her older brother, he's like 21 or so, but when they were younger, they would try to break it up and dad would hit them all. Wasn't uncommon for the police to be called to their house because dad was being violent and the neighbors called the cops. All right? So that's the chaotic world she grew up in. As a 16-year-old high school girl, what's going on in her life? Why is she seeing me? What's her current situation?
She's cutting herself.
Cutting herself. Close. What's her current life situation? Unstable, but what's that instability? Not yet, but we're right in there.
Choices, maybe.
Right.
Using.
Huh?
Using?
Yeah, what else?
Fighting.
Dating a guy who got expelled from her high school for beating another girl up at school.
Wow.
Now, why is she attracted to this guy?
Because your dad is your own.
Right, because it's safe.
Safe.
It's
That's
familiar. And if you've heard the saying, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. Her unconscious, your unconscious, my unconscious, all right, will choose safety over happiness. Safety over happiness. Safety is the familiarity, okay? All right, safety, it's familiar, so it feels safe. All right, so she's consciously, I would never be with a guy that hit me, but unconsciously she's drawn to him. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's like my my wife, when I was in treatment the first time, my therapist I talked to said, my wife grew up with her, just found her dad was a crackhead and her mom got murdered from a meth head, and so, but her mom was an addict also, but the therapist told me, well, it's kind of no coincidence that she chose an addict herself to be with, because she knew my problems when she met me, so.
It was familiar for
Yeah,
her.
it's familiar for her, right?
Right, right. And see, that's what happens here, is that safety over happiness. It just feels the what's safe, that feels familiar. Because, okay, so here, let me give you another one. Now, this is not a client. This is a guy I know, and he has no idea I talk about him all the time, okay? So this guy grew up with a mother who was very cold and very rejecting. Never, I love you, never showed affection, never warm, never loving. Every relationship he's ever been in his life has been with someone who's cold and rejecting. Every single one. Every relationship he's in follows the exact same flow chart. He meets them, they're not interested in going out with him. He convinces them to go out. They go out, and it's good for a little while. But in every relationship, he has the exact same argument at the exact same stage. And right here it's, how come you don't want to be with me as much as I want to be with you? How come you don't want to get jobs together and take all our classes together and sleep with FaceTime on? I think if we go to a doctor, we might be get our ribs surgically connected, so we're together all the time. I always want to be with you. How come you don't always want to be with me? And then right here, she kind of goes, dude, you're getting a little needy and clingy. And this is actually before Find My Phone, which makes everything way worse, okay? All right? And so or my location or whatever that is, okay? And so then what happens is, she says you're getting needy and clingy, and could you back off, which makes him more needy and clingy, all right? And then here she says we need to take a break, which of course freaks him out. And then here she breaks up with him. He's never broken up with a woman in his life. And then here he now stalks her on social media until he finds somebody to start this whole process over with again. When in a relationship do his problems start? They start the second he meets somebody. Because let's say, as I tell my students, let's say you knew this guy. He was a friend of yours. And you're walking around the mall here or something like this, and you've got two girls with you about his age, and you stop and talk to him because you know him, he's a friend of yours. And you say, hey, these are my friends, and this is my friend Jenny. And Jenny's like, ooh, hey man, how you doing? Nice to meet you. What's up? Hey, we're gonna go over here to Jamba Juice. Why don't you come on over and we'll hang out? Jenny's all interested. Right? This is my friend Susie. And Susie goes, hey man, you look like an asshole and we gotta leave. You know what he said. Can you give me Susie's number?
Yeah.
Did you see when she said asshole, she kind of flicked her hair and smiled?
Mm-hmm.
I think she likes me. And you're like, dude, what about Jenny? She's weird. All right? And like I tell my students, we can laugh and joke about this, but there are plenty of people who are not attracted to people who like them because it doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel familiar. It doesn't, all right? And so again, what I say to my students, think of your last 3 friendships, your last 3 relationships, your last 3 jobs, your last 3 sports teams. What's the common theme in there? And if the last 3 people you've all dated have been verbally abusive, why are you choosing verbally abusive people? If the last 3 people you dated have all cheated on you, why are you choosing cheaters? You see, and why is because it's safe. And you know how there's usually somebody who disagrees with everything. All right, and this is years ago. We had a lot more people in here. One guy was sitting back over here. He raised his hand. He goes, "You're wrong. Just want to tell you, you're wrong. My dad was verbally abusive to me, and I'm not verbally abusive to my wife or to my kids." And I said, "No, this doesn't happen to everybody, but maybe a guy who grew up with a verbally abusive dad might get in a relationship with a verbally abusive woman." He goes, "Oh, never mind." But you see, it's this safety. Now, the reason I bring this up, all that stuff I just erased, there's part of you in your unconscious that's going to tell you, you can do this on your own. You don't need others. You're a rebel. This is what you do. Just don't let it get out of hand like it did. You can control it. You can do it your way. You don't need to do it other people's way. This is you. And see, that's the part that feels safe and comfortable. And that's the part that's really hard, because this is what you're struggling, you, the global you of anybody, the people are struggling with in recovery, because part of us, here's the thing, when we're not attracted to people who like us, because as I always say, how are you at accepting compliments? All right, if you're not good at accepting compliments, because that's back to, we talk about all the time, how are you going to build your self-esteem? Well, people who, it doesn't feel comfortable when somebody says, thank you, I appreciate you, you did a good job, you're a good friend. All right, for a lot of people, it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. And I tell my students this, you want to mess with your friends, go, hey man, I want to tell you, you're a really good friend, I appreciate having you as a friend. They're like, you dying or something? You need some money? Like, what's going on? Because so many people, they don't talk that way. But again, this safety. So this is what we're fighting against here, that there's going to be part of us that's going to draw us back into that drama, into that addiction, because that feels safe, because it's familiar. And that's what we're trying to get away from here with this. All right? Clear questions, comments, thoughts, stories we want to share here with this.
Yeah, it all definitely makes sense. When I think about past relationships, even before my wife, a lot of them has to do with a lot of my upbringing too, and it makes me think about my sons, right? Like, what do I do now? You know, how do I, you know, before I came into treatment, I was very short-tempered and yelled a lot. So now I'm trying not to be that way, right?
Right.
I'm trying to use what I've learned here
Right.
in order to deal with how I'm emotionally feeling.
And tell them, hey, I'm working on this, I'm trying to change this,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm apologizing for my past behavior, I'm gonna try to make it up. You know, not make it up, but I'm trying to change, you see, and that's the thing, because somebody who's always been short and yelling, they may be sober, short and yelling, you see, and it's like, how do I change these things? Go ahead.
How would you expand your awareness a little deeper, like something like people you're attracted to or situations you're repeatedly putting yourself into? How do you kind of, if those are so deeply rooted in us, how do you become aware of those and start to change?
Mindful awareness is the start. And also, this is kind of what I'll tell my students. I said, look, don't go stalking anybody, but I want you to notice who you're attracted to and who you're not attracted to. Because this is what I do in class. I'll say, look, I know you'll say, oh, I'm just attracted to somebody who's got a hot body and looks really good. And I said, I'll tell you what, I could get two people up here with almost the exact same body, and you'd look at one of them and go, oh my God, there they are, okay? But you'd look at the other one and go, yeah, something about that one I don't like. Maybe they're nice. You see? Maybe they're nice. And so it's also getting feedback from others. And this is why working with others, whether it's a sponsor, whether it's a therapist, whether it's good friends or these kinds of things, of like, hey, I'm drawn to this person, and you know, and that's also why they talk about not jumping into relationships in early sobriety, these kinds of things, because again, so much of that is this unconscious pull. And a lot of people, like, when I don't feel good about myself, like you talk about like self-harm or anything like this, is like, I'm not going to be attracted to somebody who is going to, like, or I'll use the word above me in a way. And the reason I say this is, like I said, in therapy films that they study forever, like the Gloria tapes from the 1960s are the original ones, and she's like, why am I dating these losers? Because when I meet people I like, I don't act like myself. All right, and you have people today of like in therapy videos, they'll talk about like, well, if people didn't want to be with you, what would that mean to me? Like, there's something wrong with me. Well, how would you then act? I'd have to find somebody who couldn't tell there's something wrong with me. You know?
Yeah, there's my buddy that I used to, you know, I grew up with, and he actually even used to say too, he's like, well, I just, you know, I know that he's like, I always aim low, so I'm never disappointed. And I thought about that, and I was
That's
like,
not a good saying.
No, I thought it. Yeah.
That is not a good, and there are plenty of people who say that. That's not a good saying, but that's what it is. In other words, what that is, you know, I don't feel I deserve, and you know what? And that's a stuck point for some people. I don't feel I deserve happiness. I don't feel I deserve good things. Look at what's happened to me in my life. Look at this. I don't feel I deserve. So what's the point?
Yeah.
And my stuck point is I don't see any point in even getting sober. Who cares? That's their stuck point. And again, talking about that, becoming aware of that, getting feedback from others. Like, this is the kind of thing that can happen in treatment. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
What if 9 times out of 10 they're probably like both of them?
9 times out of 10, you're what?
Like both of them.
Like both what?
The girls that you get up there.
Yeah, you probably don't. 9 times out of 10, because what happens is the one, like again, the one who's really nice and wants to get to know you, like there are plenty of people that makes them feel uncomfortable after a little while. Oh, you're so cool, you're so funny. Now, you know, there's a whole disorders that come with this, but whatever. Okay, but you know, like there are people who they're not used to. Again, ask yourself how you take a compliment, and when you give somebody a compliment, what do? They wince? That's not good. Okay, like, oh, stop talking. You know, quit saying good things about me. You see, so I hear what you're saying, but it's like, I think it's important to notice what you're drawn to more and where your unconscious pulls you. Because again, the unconscious often can pull me back into the rebel side. That I do things my way and you don't know me and don't tell me what to do. You see? And that's down in here. And kind of like, it's me against the world. So I'm not, you know, joining anything. Yeah. Okay. Anything else here? There we go. All right, I thank you guys, and I thank anybody who watched this. All right. All right.